let's just say that they would come to the majority conclusion that Yahweh, in a physical way, because Abraham saw him with the other men, waited on him, and he ate, right? His feet were washed. If Yahweh could appear in a physical form and walk among us on the earth, whether it was for 2 minutes or 10 minutes, or 2 hours or 10 hours, certainly this picture here is a matter of hours, and the food preparation, the cooking of the animal, and everything involved, a matter of hours. If he could do that while remaining God in heaven, then a fundamental objection to the incarnation has just been overcome. A fundamental objection that God could not live among us in the person of his Son. If he could live among us for hours, he could live among us for years, while still remaining the unseen, invisible, eternal God in heaven. Let's take a look at some of these verses. Let's go to Genesis chapter 32. Genesis 32. Based on Hosea 12, we understand that Jacob was wrestling with an angel of the Lord. Hebrew word for angel, just like the Greek word, malach in Hebrew and angelos in Greek, is a messenger. It can sometimes refer to an earthly messenger or to an angelic, heavenly messenger. But we understand from Hosea 12, he was wrestling with an angel. According to the text here in chapter 32, a man wrestled with him. Genesis 32:24, Jacob was left alone and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. Then the man said in verse 28, your name will no longer be Jacob but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have overcome. Verse 30, so Jacob called the place Peniel, face of God, saying, it is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared. I wonder what he meant by that. Did he actually think that the man with whom he was wrestling was God himself, that God left his throne above and came down, that the God who filled the universe, or the God who revealed himself in Genesis 28 had now actually become a man and wrestled with him? It's possible, but to me that's reading a bit much into it. Did he at the very least believe that in some way in wrestling with this man, this angelic messenger, this divine messenger, that he had actually had an encounter with God? Absolutely, because he said, my life was spared even though I've seen God. At the very least, I've seen a divine being. I've seen a God-like one, but in the most simple reading of the text, I saw God face to face and my life was spared. Somehow he recognized in this wrestling with a man that he had a face-to-face encounter with God. I saw God face to face. Now remember that. Exodus chapter 33. Exodus 33. Moses, passionate for the Lord, meeting with him in the tent of meeting. He prays in verse 18 of Exodus 33. Moses said, now show me your glory. Yahweh said, I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you, and I will proclaim my name, Yahweh, in your presence. I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. But he said, you cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live. So my glory is going to pass by. You can see my back or hinder parts, but you can't see my face because no one can see my face and live. Yet Jacob said he saw God face to face. So whatever Jacob saw was something that Moses couldn't see. Whatever Abraham saw was something different than what Moses couldn't see. Whatever John 1:18 says, no one's seen God, that must be the same thing that Moses is speaking of here. Yet Jacob saw something. But here we have a clear statement from God himself. You cannot see my face, no one may see me and live. So then you have to ask the question, when people saw God, who did they see? What did they see? When they had this divine encounter, what was it? With whom? If no one can actually see his face and live, then who did they see? Let's take a look at a fascinating text Exodus 24. Now remember, the emphasis put on Sinai, the revelation of God at Sinai. You didn't see any form at Sinai. And yet God actually revealed himself visibly at Sinai. Just going with what the text says. Exodus 24, verse 9, Moses and Aaron, Nadav and Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel went up. Oh, come on. How could this be written in the Torah? Not at Sinai, when God doesn't want anyone to get any wrong ideas or impractical. Who put this in here? Some Christian lady stuck this in here, trying to mess with this. No, it's just what reads in the Torah. Moses and Aaron, Nadav and Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel went up and saw the God of Israel. This is staggering. Under his feet, here's the description. Under his feet was something like a pavement made of sapphire, clear as the sky itself. But God did not raise his hand against these leaders of the Israelites. They saw God and they ate and drank. They saw God and they lived. Why didn't he raise his hand? You would have expected he would have raised his hand because you can't see him. That doesn't say they saw his face. When you have the vision of Ezekiel, the closer you get to the face of God, the more it's, and I saw what was like something that was like similar to something like this. It becomes more and more indescribable. Yet they saw the God of Israel. It doesn't say they saw a vision of him, because if it was just a vision, that wouldn't draw attention to the fact that he didn't strike them. And it wouldn't make a big deal of the fact that they saw him and they ate and they drank. It wasn't just a mental image or a hallucination. They actually saw him. Yet Scripture tells us that he is unseeable. Scripture tells us no one's ever seen him. John tells us no one's seen him. Paul tells us he dwells in unapproachable light. No one can see him. He himself, a few chapters later, says to Moses, no one can see my face and live. The only conclusion we can draw is there is an aspect of God in his very essence and being that is invisible, that cannot be seen, that cannot be touched. Mortal eyes cannot look upon and survive. And yet in another way, he reveals himself so that he can be seen, so that he can be known, so that he can be experienced. The whole message of the incarnation, the whole message of the Word becoming flesh, the whole message of the Son coming to dwell in our midst is to reveal the unseeable, hidden, invisible God, yet the Son himself is God. Just like they saw God, but nobody can see God. Isaiah 6. Isaiah chapter 6, well-known passage. Interestingly, it doesn't say I had a vision. I had a dream. In the year that King Uzziah, King died, I saw the Lord, Ha'adon, Yahweh. I saw the Lord seated on a throne, high and exalted, and the train of his robe filled the temple. When I first read that years ago, I just made an assumption, and then for years I just assumed that the assumption was right. I never questioned it, that Isaiah saw into the heavenly temple and saw God sitting on his heavenly throne in the heavenly temple. It could be true. But it just says that the train of his robe filled the temple. A very likely possibility is that Isaiah went into the temple in Jerusalem as he had many times before, and this time, oh my God, God is here.